Welcome, Flappers. This is Dear Flappy, the advice show where I take your questions, I answer them, and I nail it about 50% of the time. Let's go ahead and dive into the advice. This one comes from my Discord. If you haven't already joined the Discord down below, the link is in the description. This comes from Discord user PlayKing. I'm writing my first one-shot, and in order for the story to get the players where they're needed, I need the players to pick up on some clues in the first section. The clues are actual objects. I don't want to simply say the players find them. I'd rather give them a choice to search the room if they wish via investigation checks. How do I make sure the players find the clues and follow them without directly forcing them to? This is a good question, and I think it is an age-old DM problem where I need my players to find something, but this game is built around rolling. Don't hide anything that your players need behind a roll. And what I mean by that is if you are looking for your players to find something, even if they fail, they have to be able to find it or else your story isn't going to move forward, and they're going to always have this one clue that was left behind. I had this happen and I learned it the hard way through a mystery that I'm running. So I have some options for you to make sure your players get the information they need, even if they roll poorly. Number one, they get more clues as you roll higher. Even if you roll a 1, you're getting that base information. If you roll a 20, you're getting that base information or that object plus maybe some lore about it, a lot of lore information that you can throw in that can ultimately be a bigger clue for your players later on. Another is, this one I use a lot, and this is like a tool that I use over and over and over again. Make it take a long time to find the thing that they're looking for. If you know that your players are looking for a specific thing, they make a roll and it's bad, you're gonna find something, but it's gonna take like 10 minutes. And you run the risk of being found. Maybe they set an alarm off or a trap. I think of Indiana Jones for this sort of thing. Like, he swaps the thing, he does a good job of it, but he doesn't quite make his check and the boulder still rolls after him and he has to run away out of the temple, you know? Let's say Indiana Jones is trying to discern which cup is the Grail and he makes an intelligence check or a wisdom check and says like, oh yeah, he's a carpenter, so he would drink from the wooden cup. When I run D&D, I think of Indiana Jones all the time. Okay, next question comes from YouTube user Laura Bryant. Hey, I'm going to run my first session in 2 months. Do you have any tips for improvising? I'm afraid that I can't come up with ideas when I'm under stress. This is a little tough. A lot of people are scared of the DM role. Number one, because of all the work you have to do. And then number two, because no matter how much work you do, you still have to improvise on the spot. You still have to come up with stuff. This is a tough aspect of the game, even from a player perspective, to be like, hey, I'm struggling with improvisation. I've had players who sort of just needed a second to gather themselves before a conversation because it's hard to handle the improvisational aspect of this game. The player is not the character. So a lot of people struggle making that connection. And then for the DM, you have to make that connection on a bunch of different levels. And that's really hard. The way that I think about it to make it a lot easier for myself is to look at it as though I am not coming up with any ideas. My job is to understand the world and the rules of the world. And it's not about coming up with something amazing that's really going to dazzle your players. It's about thinking about what the ordinary circumstances dictate, what the possible outcomes are, and choosing one of those outcomes based on what the rolls are. And when people roll high, you choose the outcome that works out best for them. And when they roll low, you choose the outcome that works out worst for them. That's basically how I deal with it. The thing is, as a DM, you really need to live in the moment, and you can't let yourself think, I need to come up with something extraordinary from my brain. Whatever ordinary thing you come up with is probably going to be extraordinary for them anyway. And I think that will probably take the sort of stress off of you for improvisational stuff. I can have names prepared, I can do all of this, but the things you can't prepare are just results of actions. Let's move on. This is a Reddit question that I actually thought was really cool. How would you make odd ability scores meaningful? I read a post from about a year ago that asked whether there is a benefit to having odd-numbered ability scores. The general consensus in the comments was strength allows for wearing certain armors, carrying capacity, and jump distance. And for other ability scores, there's extra protection from stat drain abilities and 13 requirement for multi-classing. Other than that, there's no real benefit to having a 19 over an 18 or a 17 over a 16. What are some things you would do that make odd-numbered ability scores feel less wasteful? I think this is a super fun idea, and this is tough because you get into, if you're rewarding the half ability score, are you also going to reward the full ability score? Every time an ability score increases, there is a certain amount of effort that comes from the part of the character. Going from a 16 to a 17 is a little lame, especially when you only level up your ability scores so often. If the character is going up in this ability score, that means you can call for a couple of things, and I think you can do this with all of your players when they go up in ability score. Allowing for an easier use of that ability, so if there is something in the past that your players notably were not able to do, like for example an intelligence check that they failed on before and they had to leave, maybe you can like clue them in like, hey, you think about it and you realize I can go back and solve that riddle. That riddle, it makes sense to me now, and we can get through that door. Sometimes that'll move the story along too, or like some sort of simple task for strength or for dexterity. If they go from a 16 to a 17, you weren't able to do a tightrope walk, and this ability score for your dex increase is you practicing this tightrope walk, and now you can take tightrope walking as a skill. It makes it feel like a part of the story had meaning. And then another idea is to call for an actual story moment. Your intelligence increase represents your time spent with a sage or something. So you come across someone who recognized your ability and has been since writing you letters back and forth. And now they have a new connection in a new place. And even though it's kind of dinky stats-wise, make it important to them story-wise. I have one more question, but before we get to that, make sure you like this video. When you like this video, helps me out a lot, it helps the channel out a lot, and it helps this video spread to more eyes and therefore help more people. Please hit the thumb below. Last question for you guys all at home to sort of mull over. Leave an answer in the comments if you have one, because I don't. This question comes from Discord user Crazy8ths. Have you ever had a character die in any of your campaigns? If so, how did you handle it with the player both in and out of game? Or alternatively, if you haven't, if your character died in game, how would you want your DM to handle it? You guys rock. You guys are the best. All right. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you next time.